1 year ago, James Wiseman was the consensus #1 pick in the 2020 NBA Draft. The 7'1" center with a reported 7'6" wingspan only played 3 games during his college season with the Memphis Tigers before a scandal got him suspended, leading him to decide not to play another college game. Due to that, his draft stock has dropped, and although there is still a chance he goes #1 overall, there are whispers that he might fall to the second half of the draft lottery. That drop wouldn't be because of his production during the 3 games he played, as he averaged almost 20 points per game in only 23 minutes per game, and he did so on a very efficient shooting clip. In those 3 games, he showcased his elite size and length, as well as his explosiveness and agility. That combination of size, athleticism, and mobility gives him elite defensive potential, not only as a rim protector, but also a big that can switch onto smaller, quicker players. His physical tool set makes it so that he should be an effective center running any pick and roll or defensive scheme, and he has the potential to be the ideal modern-day NBA center on the defensive end. That combination of size and athleticism also makes him an elite lob threat. He's also a good finisher inside, and it's not just him scoring over people, he can knock down hook shots, and he's shown some flashes of promise on push shots and floaters. On top of that, he is a good rebounder, and he's shown some flashes of offensive skill. Although very inconsistent, he's shown that he's able to knock down a mid-range jump shot. He has decent form and might become a solid 3-point shooter in time. He's also shown some flashes of being able to handle the ball and push in transition, as well as a face-up game. How good Wiseman becomes likely depends on how much he's able to improve his offensive skill set. However, as is the case with almost every prospect in this year's draft class, he does come with some major question marks. As is the case with most young bigs coming into the league, he needs to get stronger and improve his frame. He also doesn't dominate as much as he should. Given his size and athleticism, he should be a major presence every time he steps onto the court. However, that's not always the case with Wiseman, as he's prone to disappear for stretches and simply blend in when he should be dominating. Also, as a left-hander, he is a bit left-hand dominant and needs to improve on his right hand. On top of that, he settles a bit too much for jumpers or finesse finishes, although his ceiling does involve him being a versatile big that can do it all, including shoot. He's not quite there yet and relies a little bit too much on his jump shot given how poor the results have been. And although he's shown flashes of skill, he is still very raw offensively. It doesn't seem like he has a good feel on that end of the court. Now, he can make up with that due to his size and athleticism, but he still has a long way to go on the offensive end in order to truly tap into his potential. And on the defensive end, he needs to improve his defensive awareness and IQ. Now, he has a ton of potential on that end of the floor, but he holds himself back due to a few different factors. He is a bit slow to recognize plays as they happen, he's prone to getting caught out of position, and he's also a little too eager to chase blocks, which will get exposed on the NBA level when he goes against craftier players. In order to truly become the elite defender his physical tools suggest he can be, he needs to improve his defensive awareness and IQ. So now I'm going to bring in Eric Brandt to discuss why me and him are both higher on James Wiseman than a lot of the mock drafts that we've seen lately. James Wiseman was the #1 prospect going into his 1 year of college basketball, then he barely played, and now there's a lot of question marks regarding him. I've seen some mock drafts having him being drafted around 8th, 9th, 10th. That would be a steal for any of those teams because I have him as the #2 player on my big board. I think he's being underrated at this point, and I'm just going to go into why I have him higher. I still like his upside, all right? He's an athletic big, super lanky. He has a ton of potential as a defensive player, as a rim protector. And if you look at the NBA, a majority of the top big men in the league are good defensive players. The only guys that aren't are freakish offensively, looking at like a Nikola Jokic or a Karl Anthony Towns. Now, Wiseman is not going to be that type of offensive player, but I do think his defensive potential combined with his athleticism, combined with little flashes of what he's shown offensively, makes him the #2 prospect in this class. Eric, what are your thoughts on James Wiseman?
So a huge mystery. He only played 3 games. So it's really hard to judge anything off those stats. But if you look at the stats on those 3 games, they're like eye popping. I feel like at the very least, he has a floor of being a really good rim runner, active, big energy type guy. And you don't want to use a number 2 pick if that's all he is. But I think worst case scenario, that's what he is. And I feel like he has the skills. His shot doesn't look too bad. He's a decent free throw shooter. Like I said, he rebounds well. A little bit of that is he uses athleticism a little too much. I think he needs to work on fundamentally rebounding. But I don't know. He's one of those guys who could be an elite big in this league if he is what he's shown so far in very little time seeing him.
Yep. I think he could potentially be a top 5 defender in the league in his prime. And in a weak draft like this year's is, using the number 2 pick on a guy with that defensive potential, I think, is worth it, let alone what he could potentially bring offensively, which is the big question mark with him. Let's just be honest. Is he just going to be a put-back, dump-off threat, or is he going to be a guy that can maybe stretch it out and shoot jump shots? Will he be able to develop a little bit in terms of being able to pass the ball? Honestly, as a ball handler, he doesn't look too bad for a big man, so there are some potential areas to build on to develop him into a well-rounded offensive threat. I think he's a long ways away, but the fact that he has potential in different areas offensively combined with that defensive potential, I think makes him a slam dunk number 2 pick. I think he would be a great option for Golden State should they elect to keep that pick. There are rumors about Golden State potentially looking at a wing instead, but I think it would be very smart of them to go after a rim-protecting big who could play right away, who could maybe be their best center right away, because honestly, I expect Wiseman to come in and be able to make some sort of impact. Just when you have that level of athleticism, size, and defensive ability, he might end up being the most impactful rookie next year, because you got a draft full of projects, you got a draft full of questionable guys, you got some 3-and-D NBA ready guys late in the lottery and in the middle of the first round, but none of them provide the instant upside that Wiseman does, in my opinion, as a defender.
Yeah, and you look at the Warriors lineup, you just surround him with shooting Wiseman and just make him on offense, get offensive rebounds and worry about putbacks and stuff like that. And then on defense, he's back there in case anyone blows by their man. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a perfect spot for him. I'm shocked that Golden State doesn't want him. I don't know if that's just posturing by them to try and get some interest in trading for that number 2 pick. But this guy is a freak athlete, and he's 7'1", and I think his shot looks really good. I've seen limited amounts of this, but he's caught the ball in the post, has a nice 10-foot turnaround jump shot, and he shoots it high, kind of like LaMarcus Aldridge, where it's really hard to block. So if he consistently hits those kind of shots, he's going to be really tough to stop in the post as well. Even in the NBA, we talked about skills that translate. That's one thing that does translate. He's got little hook shots from both hands. He definitely does need to expand his range out. We didn't see him shoot many threes, if any. I think he shot a couple in 3 games, but so we don't even know if he can shoot that range or not. But I think he has the form to extend out to the NBA 3-point range.
Yeah, and that's where his ceiling is if he could develop his 3-point shot and be a good enough 3-point shooter that teams have to respect it and potentially run him off the line, then he could be lethal, because in terms of just his quickness and ball handling ability, it is solid for a big man. So if he becomes a guy that can knock down the 3, and then if you close out on him too hard, take guys off the dribble and attack the rim with his athleticism and size, he could be a very, very good offensive player as well. And I think that's kind of where his ceiling is. I think him and Anthony Edwards are the 2 guys with superstar potential if everything pans out right. You might have a guy that surprises. Giannis was drafted 15th in 2013, and he wasn't a guy that was on many people's radar. So there could be a guy out of this draft that surprises us and becomes a superstar. But in terms of just looking at guys right now, Wiseman and Edwards are the 2 clear-cut guys that have superstar potential. So obviously, that's why they're number 1 and 2 on my board.
And in this type of draft where there isn't necessarily a star potential, I think that's when you go after a guy like Wiseman or Edwards, where you can see skills that could lead there. It might not happen, but I think that's a risk worth taking in this type of draft.
So anyway, that wraps up our draft profile on James Wiseman. Hope you enjoyed. Remember to hit that subscribe button down below, as we will keep bringing you draft profiles and NBA draft content. We do want to branch out into other types of videos, but for now, we just have these draft profiles planned. And I'm out of here. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.